As many of you know, hopefully, digital wellness is a big priority for Google this year. Because technology is becoming a bigger and bigger part of everyone's lives. What we often hear from users today, though, is that they want to find a better way to find a better balance with the technology that they use and love every day, especially with their phones. So as Play and Android, from a platform and operating system perspective, we obviously believe that it's our responsibility to build products for users that make their lives easier and better and not detract from them. As you can imagine, on the games team over the past year, we've been thinking a lot about these trends and core values at large, especially in relation to how they translate to our work with game developers in the game space. And what's interesting about the game space, and why I wanted to start off this panel talking about wellness, is that often when it comes to games, the idea of mindfulness and sustainability can sometimes be at odds. Now, I want to be clear, when I talk about mindfulness, I mean mindfulness in terms of more meaningful user engagement. And they can often feel at odds. We're all going after people's time, their money, user mindshare. But how do you pursue deep engagement without necessarily causing burnout? And how do you pursue more meaningful monetization without necessarily causing buyer's remorse? And how do you do both of these things well while also achieving your business objectives? Obviously, that balance is a really difficult one to strike. But when I personally think about a developer who has proven that bottom lines and mindfulness don't necessarily have to be at odds, who actually intentionally uses more meaningful engagement and more sustainable monetization as a strategy to achieve their impressive business goals, I think of Crowdstar. So I'm very excited to have a group of people here from Crowdstar today who are going to join me up on stage in a second to tell us a little bit more about their approach to gaming in general, what makes them different, and how they believe these differences have played into their success in the market in recent years and helped them build very healthy and sustainable businesses. OK, let's welcome out to the stage. Yeah, it's very good. OK, well, let's first do some introductions. Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris McGill. I'm the general manager of Design Home.
I'm Sarah Fuchs. I'm the general manager of Covet Fashion.
Thank you guys for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Great. Let's kick it off. So, creative fashion and interior design games. Chris, will you tell us a little bit about how you and your team approached creating these games in this space?
I think the crib notes are really about Crowdstar. So Crowdstar, just quickly, has been several different companies. And in a moment of desperation, when Facebook changed policies, when they were going to run out of money, sometimes that moment of desperation, about 6 years ago, unleashes you from the rules. And it was prior to me, but Covet Fashion came about when they had no time left, and they decided to take just a radical different approach because there's no downside. And what they did is, instead of a fail-fast game environment, they actually looked for the white space, tried to figure out who was not served, and took this crazy chance of not only creating an entertaining game, but one that could have intrinsic value in your life outside the game. Mm-hmm. And that's, Design Home iterated on that, and it's its own entity, but it's the same principle of entertaining people about the things that they love, but also having a connection to what you do and how you do it and make your life more informed outside of the game. It's really an app and a game in one.
And it worked.
Yeah. So 5 years later, Sarah can tell you, Covet Fashion is having its record year, and Home is a top 30 grossing app.
Awesome. Well, obviously, Crowdstar has carved out this very interesting space for itself to work in terms of its innovative and atypical game design. But what is it that you think makes these games so unique and successful? Sarah?
I think we meet the players where they are. I think we have thought about, what women like to do and found a way to make that fun and make that a game and make that interesting. And we spend a lot of time learning about our players. And I think the more we get to know our players and the more we think about what emotion we want our players to have when they're playing and when they're done playing and when they make a purchase, we really think about the experience that's valuable for them. And we want them to come away with this positive feeling. And so we use that as kind of a North Star for how we design our games.
So this strong player-first kind of mentality.
Player first, 100%.
Another thing that's really interesting about Crowdstar, I think, in terms of a game, or sorry, about Covet and Design Home in terms of games, is this intrinsic reward aspect of your games. Will you expand upon that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, we want players to play. We don't necessarily use kind of tried and true game mechanics. We are event based, and so we provide 5 to 6 events every day. And players come in and they have a Covet fashion. They have a model that they dress, and then they get voted on, and they get to enjoy the rewards from that. So we don't have sort of necessarily extrinsic rewards for them. They come back and they are passionate about what they do.
And one thing that has stuck with me in some of our conversations is that your players are actually happier when they're done playing Covet or playing Design Home. That's pretty unusual, I would say.
Yeah, there's actually a study that shows a year later in Covet fashion that women are happier because you don't put yourself into the game. It's not about you or your body or your face. You actually get to learn what you like, what you don't like, and a year later when you step out of your house, whether you're going on a date, a job interview, or out with your girlfriends, you feel a little more confident about yourself. So, we try to be additive to our players' lives.
And we try to measure that too. I mean, you can't measure happiness. That's impossible. If we could do that, that would be like the secret sauce. But we do try to engage with our players as often as we possibly can to understand what makes them happy. We send random surveys. How did you like this challenge? We poll them at random times. We have a style council on Covet Fashion that has 25,000 players and that we talk to on a regular basis. We make videos for them, we give them feedback, we give them exclusive access, and we really want to take what our players have to say and make sure that we're delivering the experience that's right for them.
Right. It's a balance of, heavy quant, but also tied in with a lot of qual.
So obviously this user-centric kind of strategy is something that you've stayed very tied to. I think you've said these businesses kind of grew out of seizing the white space that was available, but you've clearly stayed very tied to your players. How much does that continue to drive the growth and evolution of these games?
I think it's everything.
Good.
It's the reason why we get out of bed. We have to have a love affair with our users. We have to understand them quantitatively in the game. We have to understand them qualitatively in the game, but also in their lives. And the idea is we actually write down the emotions that we want you to feel when you play the game, but also the emotions you want to feel when you close the game. So you're not just entertained, but just then find an hour later you close the app and you're like another hour older.
Exactly right.
I love it. Okay, so using user sentiment to guide game design obviously makes sense. But as you mentioned, Sarah, it's really tricky. Yeah. How do you guys balance between optimizing for user sentiment against optimizing for key business KPIs like engagement or revenue?
You do this one.
Okay. So obviously we're thinking about KPIs, but when we're designing a new feature, we'll make sure we stop and think, is this a retention KPI? Is this a retention feature? Is this an engagement feature? Is this a revenue feature? And we really think about that. And often, we are in the midst of designing this fantastic engagement feature that's coming soon, as we're designing it, we think, oh my gosh, we could totally monetize the crap out of this. We could totally make money here. And then we're like, you guys know, that's not what this is about. We want to engage our players. It's about the long game for us. It's not about that instant buck. Like we could have a sale tomorrow and have $1 million day, but the hangover for that would be so just not worth it. So we really think about the long game for our players and breadth. As many players as we possibly can, paying a little bit, but enjoying their time.
And that is how to maximize the revenue for us. That is it. It's not like, altruism,
We're still about the revenue.
Yeah, right. It's a business. But it's a question of, we're trying to build a platform, a long-standing platform that never wears out. And so it's a matter of what you do and when you do it. And these are, we have these fights all the time, though, internally.
What fights?
We have knockdown.
Tell us about the
knockdown drag.
Not me and Sarah.
No, I'd win.
No, but seriously, what are these? I'm assuming the debates are about.
It's really what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, we could put in this feature, and we know, we leave money on the table, short-term money, every day in the interest of long-term money, and that's the balance that we have to argue about in a healthy way every day. We know this month, we can make an extra $2 million, but that's going to lead to retention issues, and that's actually not going to enrich their lives. And we also make sure, I mean, the stat that I'm most proud of is actually the percentage of our payer base. So every day, we have 1 million women in the game, and at any given point, 40% of them have been a payer, right? So it's about having a broad and engaged audience that doesn't pay a ton. Like, we're like the anti-whale hunters, right?
And we don't like the term whale.
Yeah.
We don't use the term whale except to say we don't use the term whale.
Right. I'm sorry, I said whale.
Thank you.
So it sounds like from a monetization perspective, I want to dive into the engagement perspective piece in a second about something that Chris just said. But from a monetization perspective, it sounds like your North Star is getting users to pay small amounts over time. So there's a consistency aspect of that. So more is not necessarily better, is what I'm hearing.
Correct. I think, sorry, I'll take this and you can jump in. You know, Chris, you often say we can't make our payers pay more than $10 a day. It's really hard to do that. And for us, it's about more people engaging than one person paying $100,000.
Right.
It's that combined with we actually make sure that they don't play too long. Yeah. Like, we publish, well, Covet 6, Home 5, LiveOps challenges a day. They take typically 10 minutes to complete. And we space them out throughout the day. So you can't even, if you play them all, like, you can't play more than one at a time. Mm-hmm. And then we actually tell you to go away. Like, get back to your life. There'll be another challenge, you know.
In some way, you're capping engagement.
We want to leave them with more. That feeling of, oh, I want to do more, rather than, oh, I'm bored, I'm going to stop, or I'm bored, or I have to stop because of something else. We want them to want to come back and, you know, be excited for their challenge results and be excited for the next thing. We have a great relationship with our community on Covet, and I have players who've told me they have timers for when they know the next event is going to start.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, okay, I love that. That's great. But there's that feeling of wanting more.
Yep. And I know you guys said a lot of this is, you know, a little bit art, a little bit science in terms of constantly balancing the qual and the quant. Have you ever experimented on doing more challenges? And if so, what happened?
Yes. And we still do. I mean, sometimes we'll run like a bonus challenge and stuff still today. But also when Covet was being iterated on, I mean, it's actually before my time. They iterated on many, many challenges, like 8, 9, 10 a day. Mm-hmm. And they settled on 6. And that was, you know, some science and some art, because they didn't have the long-term retention data at that point, but it's just what felt right to them in play testing, you know, and it was also a little bit of an accident, because they also, you know, would run out these 10 and realize, like, holy crap, we don't have enough people to make more at that time. I mean, we do now. And it just is a nice rhythm, and they also space them out so that it's like a snack. You know, throughout your day, it's relevant to you no matter where you live in the globe. There's something happening you know, when you get up. And we talk about it. I mean, like, we could run out many, many, many more challenges per day now, but we don't want to. And this is just, you know, it's atypical game design. It's not for everybody, but this is what's working for us. Right,
makes sense. So would it be fair to say that in general you optimize these games for the masses versus your top 20% of players?
Absolutely, like without a doubt. Like, we want a broad player base and payer base, because, you know, if you delight a user to the point where they want to take out $2, $5, they're more invested in the game. You've proven something to them, but, you know, we don't get up to take out thousands of dollars out of a few. Like, it's about a broad invested player base.
And so I can
give you an example of that. So in Covet fashion, we have these hair accessories that everybody wants. And from time to time, we do these $4.99 hair accessory sales. And we did one 99-cent one. And we found that we made more money with the $4.99 one, but more players bought with the 99-cent one. So we're sticking with the 99-cent one because we want more players to convert and engage and you know, buy more things later.
Right. And yeah, what we know is that's actually monetizing revenue over the long run, right? Because those people have now invested 99 cents. They're more invested in the platform. The hair accessories did not work for me, by the way. So that's just like the way we roll.
Totally. Let's get some of those for him and Covet.
Oh, yes, definitely. The bald is beautiful.
So,
You know, we did have a bald.
We do, yeah.
so Sarah, something that you just said is interesting. When you are thinking about making product decisions, so what the scenario you just described with the $4.99 versus 99 cents, it sounds like you guys would even make changes in the game if it was revenue neutral, let's say, if it increased your, if the payer footprint.
We do, and that's not. I come from a more traditional gaming background. It was kind of a bit of a mind shift for me switching. But we do have arguments, we have debates. We say, but we could make all of this money. But then we also think, but hey, we could get all these players who will then make more money for us in the long run. So it is about revenue.
Right.
It's just about kind of being mindful that we don't need to have $1 million day. We'd rather have many players play so that we can make more in the end.
Right. So you can have a $50+ million year.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So how do you think about retaining? We've just said, like, when users play into the game, that means they're probably more invested in the game. They spend more time in it. So you're actually, from a monetization perspective, still optimizing for what it sounds like long-term engagement. But how do you think about retaining users in the game that don't want to spend dollars?
So we have a lot of different ways that players who don't pay can advance. We have rewarding video ads, we have kind of offer walls, but in Covet we also have gifting. We have these runway rallies where you play within your fashion house, and there are a lot of different ways to progress faster. You don't have to pay, and in fact we have a large percentage that don't pay and still enjoy and still have advanced to level 66 and are very happy.
Yeah, home's the same way, and we have a borrowing capacity if you bring a friend in. The same tools, and we have a daily gift. You just can't play either as much or maybe do as high quality a design as you might like. You really have to make that decision.
Yeah, and it sounds like one of the advantages that you guys have is that because you have such a broad payer base, you don't actually feel the pressure to design the game in a way that it's more focused towards the top 20% of your users. You actually can keep it very open.
Yes, and on top of that, I mean, if you actually look at this audience, and it's an older female audience, it's also a different approach. It's not a zero-sum game. It's, it's a positive-sum game, and it's not about creating a competition where there's stress, and these games are about creativity and relaxation and inspiration. I mean, people call it Pinterest the game.
Right.
But we do think about that. I mean, back in January, Covet ran an experiment where we loosened our restrictions, the things that you had to do to enter a challenge. Mm-hmm. And we're like, everybody's like, oh no, we're gonna not make money, panic attack. But Design Home was doing so well, we had a little bit of a cushion to be able to try these experiments. And we loosened our restrictions, and engagement went up, revenue stayed the same. So, that engagement piece, I can't emphasize it enough, and there's fear associated with not doing these things. But and it's fortunate that we did have the Design Home cushion. Thank you, Chris. But we were able to run these experiments, and we were able to really see that engagement matters.
How do you guys manage against short-term pressure internally to think about, pressure internally to think about short-term KPIs and not prioritize those over this ideal long-term state?
I think it's a struggle. I think that it's a mind shift that that we kind of work through every day, because there is certain pressure to maintain certain KPIs to hit our goals, but what we have done has worked, and the more we continue to prove that this works, the more leeway we're going to have to be able to say, back off. This is how we're doing it.
Right.
I think we have a luxury that other people may not have when you go do this, because this does work. It does maximize the yield under the curve. Like, I'm super convinced of it. The great thing for us is that we have, Fashion has a 5-year track record of doing this. They're going to have their record year in their 5th year. I don't know of another game that had the record year in their 5th year. And, so mostly when we get pressure, we can just sort of point at our track record and say, this is what we're doing. I'm not going to say that works every time.
Sure. How closely do you guys work together, even though you're on separate games? Like, how closely do Covet and Design Home work together, learn from each other, lend each other money?
I'll start and you finish. Oh, we lend each other money. You know, I've only been with Crowdstar for almost a year. And I look to Chris and the Design Home team for advice and feedback all the time. I think that, you know, Covet's a 5-year-old product, so Design Home was really built kind of on the back of what Covet was, and took a lot of great learnings from it. But the teams work together all the time. We have the Design Home and the content team and the Covet content team working together, learning from each other. So I think we really rely heavily on each other. We have Judy out there, who's our director of product management, who works for Design Home, but who I talk to all the time and who offers amazing, relevant, helpful advice.
Yeah, and the truth is I actually started on Covet Fashion. Like I ran BD on Covet Fashion. I hadn't been in games. It was like drinking through a fire hose. Definitely changed the way I looked at the world. But you know, fashion is our mother. We are built on her shoulders. You know, she fed us while we like developed the game. We took everything that we liked about it. We obviously took our own take. We have a different kind of economy, you know, but the two games are totally intertwined, and we like each other. It's like we like having brown bag lunches and talk about what's working, what's not working, and why, and lending resources when we need to.
I think that's one important thing about this. I've been working in games for 19 years, and Crowdstar is one of the first places I've ever truly felt completely supported, like, you know, with an absolute family-like environment where you can say, hey, this is what I want to do, and you're not running it up the chain 150 times. You're actually just like, okay, we trust you, we believe you, go for it. But the Crowdstar feeling is very familial. We really support each other, we really care about each other, and you know, I'm all about Design Home's success.
It's not like we don't have family squabbles.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Like, no question about that. But I think it speaks to what the game is when you have a team that's really supportive of each other.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you have different experience sets too. I mean, Sarah, I am interested in learning a little bit more because of your background in gaming. I mean, you've mentioned that you had to have this kind of big mind shift when you came to Covet. One of the first times I met Chris, I said, you know, it would be so great, because I'm obviously coming from a gaming perspective, if there were timers or there was some gotcha or at this and this, and he said, no, that's not for us. And so, like, how drastic was that mind shift for you coming from the gaming world?
Extremely drastic. I mean, gotcha and timers and things like that work. They make money, they make revenue. They are, you know, and I come from, you know, mobile gaming when it was in its infancy, and those are the things that work. But we have a different kind of audience. We have a different kind of game. We're really towing the line between game and app. And it's important for us, and it was a shock for me. It was like, okay, I have to unlearn this. I came in like bubbling with all these ideas, and Chris and I, like in one of our first meetings, I was like, Chris, we could do this and this and this, and he was like, slow down there, hang on, your ideas are great, and we're not going to do gotcha. But I think it's something that it's not the only way. I think that there are a lot of ways to have a successful product.
It actually speaks to a lot of our qual. Okay, so we have quant coming out of our ears. Then we have, I mean, Judy's sitting right there. I mean, Judy like is the smartest person on the planet, right? And we are definitely run by our data. There's no question about it. But what our qual said is what women love, what our users love about us is that, you know, and we actually divide them into 4 different, actually in your case 6 different player types and what's important to them. And you know what's important to them, all of them? No stress. Like relaxation, creativity, inspiration. So like everything we do, like when we say, okay, like we can make $1 million this month, and okay, well, does it add stress? You know, is it inspiring? Is it creative? Because if it isn't, it doesn't go. Like, it just doesn't go. If it is, great, let's do it.
It's amazing. That's really unusual to be able to stick to your user values like that. And
well, but it's
the core of
business.
Who we are.
Like, it works for the business. Like, it's not altruism. It's like really good business.
Yep. One question I wanted to ask you, because it's something that I think is interesting for the style of games you guys make, and because my colleague Moonlit, I know, talked about this earlier. One of the things we're seeing in the games industry right now is an increase in exploring subscriptions. So is subscription something that you guys have ever thought about offering, or do you have like opinions about subscriptions in mobile games in general?
So I can't speak to the past, what they've thought about before, but we're definitely thinking about subscriptions. I think that, there were a lot of great talks earlier this morning. I think that we need to think about them in a different way. We definitely are, in fact, I have a meeting about this week, but we need to think about how they work for Covet Fashion and Design Home, because what works for one type of game is not necessarily going to work. But I think subscriptions has a ton of possibilities. I think there are ways that we could explore it, maybe with in real life stuff tied into our products. So I don't know what that looks like. I think there's a great future for it.
We were just kibitzing over here while Moonlit was talking. We're like, okay, maybe we need to think about this in a different way, and maybe there's something that we, as a very different entity, can bring to the table that takes those elements but also adds other elements into it. And it's frightening at first to think about it, like, oh, I got a good business, like I don't want to cannibalize it, like don't screw it up, don't screw it up, don't screw it up. But we are a company that takes chances, and I think we might talk about a unique take on it.
Nice use of the word kibitzing. That was great.
Okay, let's switch gears and do lightning round, because I think we have a couple minutes left. But I have some good questions that I have stored here. So lightning round. Ready? I wish I could limit your answers to like words, like 3 words each to make it harder, but let's not.
Green.
3 words each.
No, please.
Green.
I said that first.
What year will Design Home have its first AR integration, if ever?
Next year in selective settings.
Okay. How many games will Crowdstar have live in 2021?
More than 3.
What's one thing you wish you knew a year ago and subsequently did differently?
This one's easy. I wish I put more energy and more focus into recruiting, because we're growing really quickly, and it's really hard. And sometimes, especially when you're doing LiveOps, to like lay down the track right before the train goes over it. And if any Unity engineers are in the crowd, meet me at the bar.
Analysts too.
Just about anybody, actually.
Sarah, what about you? Same question. So what's one thing you wish you knew a year ago that you would do differently?
It's hard for me to have a different answer than that. But I wish that we had done our Covet Fashion personas earlier. So, I wish that we had been able to really deep dive on who our players are earlier than we did, because we're having a record year. It's incredible. And I think if we knew then what we know now, last year could have been a record year too.
Awesome. Name another game developer that you admire.
Network.
I admire, I think, Playrix for their success and Roblox for their innovation.
Have you or anyone you know ever bought furniture out of Design Home?
Yes.
Yes, including my wife.
What about clothes from Covet?
Yes, including myself.
All right,
it's
awesome.
great when you go into a store and you're like, that's our brand. Yeah, and then you buy it.
It's true. It's useful. Learning. Part of the hook.
Exactly.
Okay, parting advice. Chris, if you could offer other game developers one piece of advice when it comes to how they approach new game design, what would that be?
I think it's write a value proposition. I think games universally try to solve the value proposition of, I'm bored. But if you can entertain people and tie it intrinsically to their life outside the game, that's defensible. That's totally different. It's additive. It may not be curing cancer, it might not be Mother Teresa's work, right? But it is additive. It's not what other people are doing, and you're competing on a different plane.
Sarah, knowing what you know now, for game developers who are trying to pursue more meaningful engagement or more sustainable monetization strategies, do you have any tactical advice?
Create a relationship with your players, people who actually play the game. Think about the emotions you want them to have while they're playing, and as Chris said, the emotion you want them to have when they put the game down. And have that be your North Star, and focus on that relationship with the player.
And that can be measured. It can be measured qualitatively.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much for doing this with me today. I hope everyone feels like they learned something.
Thank you.
I have one more thing to say. What I really like about it is like we're doing something very different, and it's clear to me, Emily and Moonlit, that you have gotten what we've done. You've been a champion for this, and it's like the best.
I think it's important to show that you can be different and extremely successful. And so thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.